Yeah, so thanks everyone for joining. The inspiration behind this event was a bit like an open mic night to talk about the power of expression and storytelling. Usually open mic nights are kind of held in a bar or different type of venue in person, but we're trying our best to do this virtually and bring these stories to you. I wanted to thank especially the JET alumni who have taken their time to write stories and will be sharing powerful stories this afternoon. We hope this event provides you with some tips on how to begin storytelling while on the program. So I know something Laura mentioned yesterday was that JET really gives you the opportunity to become a storyteller. So I think that's a great point to remember. And also we'll talk about how you can incorporate storytelling into your role as an ALT or CIR. So our first speaker is Julia Mace, who was in Kagawa from 2009 to 2016. She'll be speaking on special education in Japan and the unique opportunity JETs have to form bonds with students who have special needs. So thank you, Julia.
Hi, everybody. I hope everybody can hear me okay. Nod. Yeah, okay, thank you. So again, my name is Julia. I was in Kagawa, which is Japan's smallest prefecture, from 2009 to 2016. I did serve 2 extra years after my JET term was up. And over that time, I got to know a lot of my students, and especially the special ed students, the special needs students. For those of you who don't know, mental health services in Japan and the view of mental health and different learning abilities and cognitive abilities is very, very different from what we experience in America. So I'm going to tell you a very heartwarming story that always makes me cry. Don't cry, Julia. About a very special bond that I made with one of my special needs students. Her name was Eddie, E-R-I, Eddie, and I first met her when she was in the 5th grade. And I was just doing an intro class and like asking each student, what's your name? And they can say, my name is. And I got to her and she looked so excited, but her mouth wouldn't move. And I was like, okay, she's just nervous. So I asked her again and she still looked excited, but didn't move. But the teacher came over and put his hands on her shoulders and said, she doesn't talk. And I said, okay, well, that's cool. Let's have a high five. And I kept moving. I found out later that she had selective mutism, which for those who don't know, it means that there was a trauma in her life at some point that physically stops her from speaking to certain people. I learned that she could whisper to her mother and her brother, but could not physically not vocalize to anyone else. I never knew what the trauma was. That's not my business. So when she came to middle school to study English with me there, something normal that happens is that kids have one-on-one reading tests out in the hallway. It'll be a passage from the book. They sit across from you, they read the passage out loud, you grade their pronunciation and fluency and all of that stuff. And when Eddie came out, I was like, oh crap. I know she physically cannot talk to me, but I can't just give her a 0 on this because I know she's learning and I know she's doing her homework. So what I would do is I would give her the book and say, I'm going to say the sentences out of order, and I need you to point and show me which ones they are to show me you can understand. You're not going to get full points, but you are going to be able to participate. And she was like, okay, she nodded. And so that's what we did for 2 years. She would get 50s, 60s on these little tests, but she was always participating. And I always made sure that when it was Eddie's turn, we knew what to do. We were going to get her as many points as possible. And I had cleared all of this with her other teachers so that they knew that this is why she's getting points, even though we all know she's physically not able to communicate with us. So that was fine. And because of that, because I treated her so normally and never made a big deal about her condition and just made it normalized, we became friends. And she was in homemaking club and I would watch homemaking club from time to time when that teacher was busy because I'm very handy and crafty. And she was in that club and I would teach her how to crochet and stuff and treat her just as normally as possible. Well, about halfway through her 2nd year of middle school, maybe maybe a little bit farther. It was time for another one of these tests. She comes out into the hallway, sits down. I flip the book around and get ready, and Eddie goes. She grabs the book and she flips it back around. And with her finger, she runs along the lines, and in the tiniest voice I've ever heard, she read the whole thing perfectly out loud. The tiniest whisper, like, one day, Jiro went to the store, in this tiny whisper. And I thought I was gonna die and just cry right there in the hallway, but I just held on. I just held on to my chair, and I let her get to the very end, and I marked her paper, and I thanked her very much, told her she did a good job, and asked her to please send in the next student. And it took everything I had not to completely cry in front of her. But if I had, it would have been making a big deal out of her progress, and I knew she wanted to normalize, and that this was a huge step for her. So I made it as normal and respectful as it had always been with us for those years. And from that day, she began to speak in her tiny little whisper voice to more people, to her teachers, to her friends. I went up to her homeroom teacher later on that day and told her what happened, that Eddie spoke to me. And the teacher said, "You're probably the only teacher in this school who's ever heard her voice." And that really meant something to me. To me, it meant that I was the person who made her feel comfortable to vocalize, the foreign teacher. Maybe I was less threatening, maybe it was because we knew each other in different circumstances, but I was so moved and honored to be part of that. And by the time she was in a third year student in middle school, that would be 9th grade for America, she was shouting and laughing and playing with her friends. And she was still shy in class, like most Japanese kids are, but when she was out of class, she was so vibrant and beautiful. And it moves me to this day that I could have been part of her journey and that very big moment for her when she first vocalized to a teacher at school. Dylan, how much time do I have left? Am I good?
You're right about out of time. If you have any last minute things to add in, please feel free.
So the thing that I want to express about that is that because children are treated very differently in Japan because of special needs, if you treat them normally with the respect and the dignity that they deserve but hardly ever get, you're going to have a good chance to really change a heart and a life. So go get them.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Julia. That was a really amazing story. I think that speaks to a lot of the compassion and being accommodating as well as adaptable. That's important aspects of being a teacher. So that's amazing. Very wonderful story.